Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The following is an audio message from Shaykh Hashim Ahmad. He's an American sheikh who embraced Islam in the 70s and went on to graduate in the 80s from Ummul Qura in Mecca. Then he was sent by Shaykh bin Baz, rahimahullah, to Pakistan, where he has been since that time. He's probably the most senior, age-wise, American graduate from any Saudi institution at over 70 years of age, and we ask that Allah bless his health and his work. He recorded the following message discussing issues related to the coronavirus, and I wanted to share it with everyone as I found it to be extremely beneficial. The Shaykh discusses topics such as how Muslims should respond to the current situation, the Dajjal, health tips, and one thing to note is how even though he is very senior and seasoned, you can see the deliberation of the message he's presenting along with the solid advice of going back to scholars rather than being a one-man show and speaking about things which one is not qualified to speak about. So I hope it's beneficial for all that hear it, and I ask that Allah protect and guide all of us during this time. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahabati ajma'in. Amma ba'd. So a number of people have asked me my opinion on things that are going on, current events, and trying to process things as they appear and as we try to understand them. So number one, we have to understand that whatever we see, it's going on from the tadbir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's His creation and He controls it. He has created it, He controls it, and He does as He please. Nothing is happening out there without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've got obviously, in such situations, we've got a lot of conspiracy theories floating around out there. We don't know what's going on in the unseen. We know what we see, and we should stay within our sphere of influence. And whatever is happening, whoever might be involved in that process as a dhariya, as a means. So in the end analysis, it's all coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever we find a musibat coming on the earth, ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها. No type of calamity affects human beings, individuals, families, communities, the globe in general, except that it's already been written and it's destined from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the tests. In hiya illa fitnatuk tudillu biha man tasha wa tahdi man tasha. These are fitan, these are examinations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala examines His slaves therein to see who remains focused on the unseen or who gets carried away by what he sees, who gets carried away by what he hears, qila and qal, what's going on in the media, what people have to say, or who's impressed by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has informed us through His book and through the teachings of His prophets. So we should remain focused on the ta'limat ilahiyah, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned. Whatever's happening, it's coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any musibat that comes on this earth, it's coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is generally as a result of the misconduct and the misbehavior of human beings. And for those people who realize as such and turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it ends up as a mercy and a great benefit for them. And as for those who are heedless, those who are hard-hearted and continue to remain focused on the seen, continue to look for the physical means, and don't relate back to the origin of all things, then for them, obviously, it's a disaster. For them, it's a punishment, and it takes them further off the track and takes them further into their tughyan, as it were. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from being among those and make us among those who will continue to remain focused and take the takeaways that are being offered to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make this a means of rahmat for us. So it's basically a wake-up call for us. Everybody, these days, they're busy in their dunya, they're busy in their livelihoods, they're busy in their careers, they're busy building, their worldly existences. And those worldly existences are going to end today or tomorrow. So this is a wake-up call for the entire planet. I mean, everybody now has stopped, their career focus and looking for survival. So a survival in this world, in any case, it can't extend over 100 years or something of that nature, or something of that extent, a little more, a little less. The looking for our salvation and stopping everything to look towards the means for our salvation for eternity, this is something much more deserving of our attention and of our effort and our planning. So it's a wake up for us to, stop what we're doing and reflect on ourselves. It's a time for istighfar. It's a time for tawbah. It's a time for looking in the past and the various, mistakes, the various shortcomings, that we're all guilty of. We recognize that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to excuse us for that. And tawbah, that we're going to change our way. We're going to change our behavior. We're going to change our direction. We're going to change our focus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. Secondly, what we would like to focus on is that, this is not something which is unprecedented. Plagues and these medical scourges are not something that hasn't happened in human history. These are not something which are unprecedented in Islamic history as well. We've had plagues that are much more severe than this. This is not really that severe of a plague. It is, obviously, according to what we're able to understand at this point in time, it will be devastating for those people whose immune systems are compromised, those people who are more prone towards medical calamities because of their frail nature, because of their compromised and inefficient immune systems, being elderly, being sick, and having various medical conditions. Otherwise, for most of the people, it's not going to be that big of a deal for them. However, it is going to be severe for people who are, for the elderly, for the sick, etc. However, it's not like bubonic plague. It's not like the plagues that have the plague of Almas and Amwas, I'm sorry, that took place in the early Islamic history. I mean, it was just wiping out hundreds and thousands of people, at a time. Hundreds of people would fall dead daily, in a small area, and there was no recourse. And there was plagues that very few people actually survived from that. That's not the case now. This is not as severe as those plagues that have, come previously. So, and also in the scheme of things, viruses and various diseases which overcome the general population, obviously we do what we can, but in the end analysis, what happens is it's also a natural process for the building of the immune system, those who are fortunate enough to get through it. So we have to keep in mind that this is not something which hasn't happened. It's not something that we need to, get all bent out of shape and freak out, As I said earlier, it's a time for reflection, turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, istighfar, tawbah, and the various amal, which I'm going to mention, in detail shortly. So let's not get, let's not panic. This is not a time for panicking. No doubt, there's a huge amount of control that's taking place globally. Whether that control is, whether it is something that should be happening or something that shouldn't be happening, whether it's, whether it's a control which is a control that really needs to be there, it's a control that's being superimposed, unnecessarily. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. In any case, it is no doubt a wake up, for a greater control, which is ultimately, eventually going to take place. The total control of Dajjal, which is, definitely going to take place sooner or later. So it's also a wake-up call from that extent, from that perspective, that if we can't keep ourselves focused in this type of situation, what would take place when the supreme Dajjal takes place, who has total control over all resources on the planet? So how would we react in that circumstance? And would we still be looking at the material means and ways? And if so, then that's definite disaster and that's definite destruction. Or we look towards, the means and ways that our Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam has informed us of, the means through amal, the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a few guidelines also. People ask, some of the main questions that are being asked are those questions concerning Salat in Jamaat. And I would refer people, I don't have my own personal opinion on that. I think the ulama, Jazakumullah khair, they have in various places here in Pakistan, in the United States, and all over the Muslim world and non-Muslim world, the ulama, mashallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed this ummah and kept it protected, by Ahlul Ilm. And we still have, mashallah, Ahlul Ilm spread out all over the globe. So wherever we happen to be, we find those mustanad, those qualified ulama, and generally we find conglomerates of the ulama and organizations of the ulama in the various places. What those ulama have decided collectively, and they've also publicized their findings and their guidance on these issues, be it salat in jamaat. Also, the issue of janaza, those who die from this particular thing, who are shaheed, by the way. What is to be done in terms of their janaza? Those hidayat should be followed. I'm going to post also some of those hidayat which I find to be more acceptable. At the same time, we have to keep in mind that there are, since this is not a clear black and white issue, which is what we say mentioned as an ibara of nas. It is not something which is clearly mentioned that what you do exactly in this particular situation, but it's an ijtihadi situation. The conditions, the time, the people, etc. We have to look at the precedents which we find in our aslaf, also the medical advice that's given by specialists. Also the laws of the land which are pertinent and which are also going to affect these decisions. All of that taken into perspective. So the ulama have issued their guidelines, and it's a dynamic process. So those guidelines will be updated from time to time, and we should be tuned in to that, and we should be connected with our ulama and those ulama which are mustanid, and find those conglomerates which are acceptable, and remain updated and followed therein. Obviously, this is a time, as I mentioned earlier, and we can't emphasize this, overemphasize this. We can't emphasize it too much. And that is, this is a time for focus. This is a time for connection. It's a time from cutting off our, looking everything outside, and take our looking introspectively. Look inside. We've been looking outside. Let's look inside. Let's look at our belief. Let's look at our behavior. Let's look at our dhan billahi tabarak wa ta'ala. Our objectives in life, and let's change them accordingly. We need to be focused in our salats. The first thing that we're going to be held accountable on the Day of Judgment is salat, and it's the most important dariya for connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and bringing favorable conditions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should concentrate on developing our salat, developing our khushu and khudu in our salat. Tilawat of Quran, not simply a tilawat of barakat, a tilawat which every tilawat is full of barakat, but a tilawat of tadabbur. Because as it's mentioned in hadith, that fitan will come, and what's the way out of these fitan? The Quran. The Quran is telling us how to behave within these fitan. The various stories of the former people, etc. If we will go over the Quran, we'll listen to dars of Quran from our ulama. if we have good translations and good tafsirs, which are also approved by our ulama, which have been written for the common people, we should be reading those very carefully. We should be pondering over those meanings. And we should be seeing seeing how that reflects upon our own behavior, on our own outlook and perspectives. So this is very critical. Our tilawat of Quran, tilawat of tadabbur, our adhkar, our dhikr. This is a time for dhikr that is, totally immersed in, the ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we sit down and say subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar, we ponder over those meanings and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Cut off from the rest of the world, connect totally and solely with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our adhkar. Salat ala nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. A huge dhariya, for peace of mind of this world and the next world. A great source of ajr and barakat in every respect. A great way to develop our love and affection for Prophet ﷺ, which in itself is a means of deliverance from all types of calamities in this world and in the next. And last but not least, dua. As is mentioned in the hadith, nothing stops the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except dua. Meaning, within the qadr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined, that people will be given tawfiq to ask and plead and beg from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with tadarru' and khushu and khudu', and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept their dua. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to accept every dua, either by exactly what we ask for, or something better, or removing a calamity, or saving it for us in the hereafter, which will be better for those whom it's saved for. So dua has so many mawaqiyah, in the middle of the night, before fajr, after salawat, after every a'mal, anytime dua is acceptable, and dua is matlub. And there are times where it's more acceptable. Today happens to be is the day of Jummah here in Pakistan, and it will continue to be Jummah, in the other areas. So hopefully we'll take full advantage of all the mawaqi that we have in Jummahs, and the recitation of Surah Kaf, and the times of istijabat al-du'a, and the barakat of this holy day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to utilize all of these mawaqiyah and all of these dharaya, inshallah. Lastly but not leastly, also some health tips. Some of them ruhani, some of them jismani. So in terms of our ruhani health tips, then I've mentioned the various ghidhaiyat, the various ruhani nutrition that we need from our istighfar, tawbah, salat, khalwa. This is a time for khalwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made a compulsory khalwa for the entire world, and this is a time for rujua. As we mentioned, adhkar and salawat al-nabi alayhi salatu wasalam and dua. Now, for our physical health, basically what's happening is that those who have a strong immune system, then by the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not much is really happening to them, even though they contact this virus. What's happening is that those with a compromised immune system, and they're facing other, medical difficulties, so it's hitting them quite hard. So again, this is taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those who escape and those who have been protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it's His fadl. And those who are afflicted and those who even pass away, then it's a shahada from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so therefore, it's going to be khair for everyone, inshallah, tabarak ta'ala, if we look at it with that perspective. So to protect ourselves, which is something which Sharia wants us to do, we should look at all those means that strengthen our immune system. Among them, black seed. It could be in black seed form, in its raw form. It could be in the form of pure black seed oil. I would strongly recommend taking a half a teaspoon of black seed oil morning and evening with food. Other natural antibiotics and immune system boosters are ginger, fresh ginger if available, if not powdered ginger. Turmeric, if fresh is found, that's fine. If not, then the powdered turmeric is also very effective. This can be made in tea. This can be put in the food. As raw as possible, it will be more effective. Garlic is tremendous. So garlic, as much as we can take it, as much as we can have it, um, either raw or nearly raw and not overly cooked. Obviously, organic fruits and vegetables, particularly green leafy vegetables. Also, exercise is something that not only is all around great for our health and well-being, it also is proven that it is a great strengthener of the immune system. So exercise itself is a great means of strengthening the immune system. Another thing that we need to try and get is sunlight. And even though we're, in our houses, we need to come out and we need to come out and get some sunlight because that's where we generally get vitamin D, and it has a lot of benefits other than that. So I would strongly recommend that as far as possible to try and get midday sun as far as possible and as much of the exposed skin as possible. The direct sunlight on exposed skin, both male and female, to the extent that that's possible, keeping our Sharia guidelines in view, obviously. And in this in this connection, lastly but not leastly, definitely staying away from all types of junk food, processed food, sugary things, because this is going to deplete our immune system. This is going to have a negative impact on our overall health and our immune system as well. And it also is going to, these types of foods, junk foods, processed foods, sugar, white sugar, etc., these things tend to enhance inflammation, and inflammation is where viruses thrive. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq, and may this be a means of tuhur for all of us, outwardly and inwardly, and may it be a means of turning of a chapter for this ummah and for insaniyat. Hopefully it be a means of guidance for all of us, not only the ummah al-Muslimah, but al-Mustajaba, but the ummah al-Muslimah, Ahl al-Dawah, those who have not realized. Perhaps this is going to be a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's going to bring about an overall awakening for many people, that we don't have control. Humans do not have control. The control is in the one who created this creation, is controlling it as well. With all of our wherewithal, these small microbes which are unseen by the human eye, it's totally disrupted and stopped the world. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of these events a means of khair and barakat for all of us, for the entire insaniyat, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the wisdom and the sabr and the patience to get through this, inshallah, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's tawfiq. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.